A store in the capital sells Prada bags and a 110-inch television for $115,000. A Ferrari dealership has opened nearby, and a new restaurant attracts well-heeled diners who can enjoy a meal from a giant crane overlooking the city. "When was the last time you did something for the first time?" asked the restaurant's host, speaking into a microphone as the happy patrons sang along to a song by the band Coldplay. "We are not in Dubai or Tokyo, but in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, where a socialist revolution promised equality and the end of the bourgeoisie." The Venezuelan economy imploded almost 10 years ago, triggering a massive exodus of migrants in one of the worst crises in Latin America's modern history. Now, there are signs that the country is settling into a new and disorienting reality, with everyday products readily available, poverty alleviation and surprising pockets of wealth. With that, the socialist regime of dictator Nicolas Maduro is in charge of an economy that shows signs of improvement as the opposition struggles to unite and the United States lifts some of the sanctions on Venezuelan oil that have helped to decimate the national finances. The living conditions of a huge portion of the population remain miserable and, although the hyperinflation that had paralyzed the economy is falling, prices still triple every year, in one of the worst inflation rates in the world. Even so, since the regime eased restrictions on the use of the dollar to cope with the national economic collapse, commercial activity is returning to the country, which was once one of the richest in the region. Thus, Venezuela is increasingly a country of the very rich and the very poor, one of the most unequal societies in the world, according to Inequality, a respected national study carried out by the Institute of Economic and Social Research at the Catholic University Andrés Bello, in Caracas. Maduro boasts that last year the economy grew 15% compared to the previous year and that tax revenues and exports also rose. But some economists point out that the numbers are misleading, as last year's growth came after years of huge shrinkage. For the first time in 7 years, poverty is decreasing. According to the Inequality survey, half of Venezuelans are living in poverty. In 2021 it was 65%. But the survey also found that the richest Venezuelans are 70 times richer than the poorest. These numbers place the country on the same level as African nations that have the highest inequality rates in the world. Since 2015, up to 7 million Venezuelans have fled the country, according to the United Nations. In many cases, access to dollars is still limited to people linked to the dictatorship or involved in illegal businesses. A study last year by anti-corruption organization Transparency International found that illegal activities such as human trafficking and smuggling of food, diesel and gas account for more than 20% of Venezuela's economy. Parts of Caracas are full of people who have the purchasing power to consume a huge range of imports, but according to the National Academy of Medicine, 1 in 3 children in the country was suffering from malnutrition in May 2022. Despite the new slogan of the Maduro administration, Venezuela is fixed, many Venezuelans survive on the equivalent of a few dollars a day, and civil servants take to the streets to protest low wages. "I have to juggle," said Maria Rodriguez, 34, an analyst at a medical laboratory in Cumana, a small town 400 kilometers east of the capital. To pay for her daughter's food in school, she works 2 jobs and a side job selling beauty products, in addition to receiving help from her family. Irlis Jimenez is a preschool teacher in San Diego de los Altos, a half-hour drive south of Caracas. She jokingly said that her monthly salary of $10 guarantees her food for today and hunger for tomorrow. The restaurant that invites its patrons to eat at a height of 50 meters charges $140 per meal. Despite the difficulties, Maduro, whose administration has not responded to requests for comment, has focused on trumpeting Venezuela's rising economic indicators. "It seems that the sick person recovers, gets up, walks and runs," he said in a recent speech, comparing Venezuela to a hospital patient who suddenly recovers. The shift in U.S. strategy towards Venezuela has been, in parts, beneficial to the Maduro administration. In November, after the administration agreed to restart discussions with the opposition, the Biden administration gave Chevron a 6-month, extendable license to drill for oil in Venezuela. The agreement stipulates that the profits must be used to pay off the Venezuelan regime's debts to the company. Although the U.S. still prohibits the purchase of products from the state oil company, Venezuela is increasing its black market oil sales to China through Iran, say experts in the energy sector. With the recent elections of leftist governments, Maduro is emerging from isolation in Latin America. Colombia and Brazil, for example, have restored diplomatic relations with their neighboring country. The new Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, has shown particular warmth towards Maduro, meeting with him several times and striking a deal to import Venezuelan gas. With inflation of 234% last year, Venezuela is in second place in the world ranking of the index, second only to Sudan. But the numbers are minuscule compared to the hyperinflation seen in 2019, when the index soared to 300,000%, according to the World Bank. With production and prices on the rise, Venezuela is beginning to see its revenue from oil, its main export product, rise. Current production stands at nearly 700,000 barrels a day, higher than last year. Maduro came to the presidency almost 10 years ago, being elected for the last time in 2018, in a campaign seen as fraudulent and rejected by a large part of the international community. The widespread idea that there was fraud led the National Assembly to consider that the presidency was vacant and to use a device in the Constitution to appoint a new leader, Juan Guaidó, a former student leader. Guaidó has been recognized as Venezuela's legitimate leader by dozens of countries, including the United States. However, as head of a parallel government that oversaw frozen international financial accounts, he wielded no power in the country. In December, the National Assembly ousted Guaidó and dissolved the interim government, a move seen by observers as positive for Maduro. Now, several opposition figures have announced that they will run for office in a primary scheduled for October, but political analysts doubt that the dictator will allow a credible election.